We try to have a quote that we think encapsulates what the game is going to be about, or explains the experience for the game. And so the one we found this game, or that Amy Hennig, our creative director who wrote the story, came up with this game, was from T.E. Lawrence, and it's: "The dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act their dreams with open eyes to make it possible." And this sort of refers to both Drake and our new villain, Catherine Marlowe, and the idea being that someone who goes out and imposes their will upon the world is a very dangerous person. And what does that mean for both Drake and Catherine? And so that's sort of where we started the project off. So to start off with this Uncharted 3 single-player stuff. So Uncharted 2 was obviously a huge success, both critical, sold well, fans loved it. We won all kinds of awards. And so building on Uncharted 2 was something that we took very seriously at the studio and started looking at almost immediately after the project. And so one of the touchstones for Uncharted has always been building a blockbuster movie that you can play. That's been sort of the touchstone for the series since the first game, and this game is no exception. And so what does that mean? It means that you're constantly in control during these huge set pieces, having an amazing story that people can get behind. And so that's the stuff we wanted to put into this game. And then another thing that we really wanted to do this game was give you a deeper connection and understanding of our characters. And so putting Drake in situations where he can sort of show different parts of his personality and show off even deeper feelings and things that we didn't do in the last few games, we wanted to add even more to that. And so that's where we went with that. And then, of course, next generation technologies. We wanted to update all of our tech to make the game look even more amazing and play even more amazing. And then the last thing being expanded gameplay choices, so allowing the player to play in new and interesting ways. And so we'll get into all this stuff. So the story. This is basically, we decided really early on this was going to be the Drake and Sully show. We really wanted the game to be about Drake and Sullivan's relationship and how they sort of relate to each other and react to each other. And we call it a bromance in the office, between the two guys. And it's similar to something like Lethal Weapon, where you've got these two sort of buddies going through these crazy adventures together. But we wanted to go even deeper than that. And so we wanted to look at Sullivan as sort of a savior and a corrupter for Drake. He's both. He helps him out of all kinds of jams, but he also is not the most on the level person. And so what kind of role model is that for Drake, and is that something Drake wants to be or not? We also wanted to look at how relationships change with age. And so what that means is obviously Sullivan's getting older, and how does that affect Drake, and what does it mean for going on these adventures, and how is that going to play out? And it's something we wanted to look at in this game as well. And then Sullivan is a mirror for Drake. As someone that Drake could very easily become, is that something that he would like or not? And so it's something we wanted to explore in this game as well. And then claiming an identity. So this is another huge piece of this story, is claiming an identity for yourself, and what does that mean for Drake? And we tied that all up in Sir Francis Drake's ring, which was a big important thing in the first game, and it's even more important in this game, and it sort of ties into our entire adventure and how things get done and how things sort of play out. And so that's sort of where we started with the single player. Now for the next one, new villains. One of the things we always try to do is invent a new and different type of villain for each of our games, and then we kill them off, so we have to make new ones. And so for this game, we have Catherine Marlowe and Talbot. And so what they are is, the last few games we've done, Uncharted 1, Uncharted 2, we had these sort of full-on combat-style enemies where they're gun runners or a warlord or what have you. And in Uncharted 3, we really wanted to go into sort of a more insidious and clever enemy, someone who's behind the scenes, pulling the strings, who's going to get inside your head and mess with you, not necessarily an overt force, but someone who's sort of in the background all the time. And they're both part of a secret society, which harkens back to the age of Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth had all these spies around her, including Walsingham, who was her spy master, and these two are sort of the inheritor of that sort of heritage, and they've become a more perverse and power-hungry group since then, and that's who you're actually fighting against in this game. And they're indirect; they're not going to come straight after you with helicopters and tanks and stuff. They're going to more try and mess with your head. Okay, so technology. This is obviously a huge piece of the pie for us. So the first thing we decided was to go to the desert. When we started looking at T.E. Lawrence, we decided that the Arabian Peninsula was where we were headed with this game, and so sand technology was hugely important. And so we started looking at trying to make the snow from Uncharted 2 become sand, and it was obviously a lot more difficult than that. We spent a lot of time on it. So Drake can get dusty, he can knock piles of sand over, he makes footprints, all these different things to make the sand look really, really good. We spent a lot of time on that. And then we didn't want to just stop with that. we also decided to do water as well. And so we went back and looked at how we had done water in Uncharted 1 and actually completely revamped those systems as well, adding in a huge dynamic ocean system and sloshing water on the cruise ship and all these different things to make our water feel even better to the player. We also completely expanded our melee and brawling system. So we ripped out the entire system for how you actually punch the enemy in the previous games and added in this brand new brawling system. And so what that means is you can actually fight multiple guys at the same time. You can bounce back and forth between targets. You can pick up improvised weapons like a bottle on a bar and smash it on their head. It's all these cool new mechanics to allow the player to not only shoot with the enemy but actually have these brawl setups as well. We also added a completely new streaming animation system to get even more animations in the game than we had last game. So things like when Drake's running around, he'll change his emotional and his body state based on what's happening around him. So if he's casual, he'll sort of be jogging, but then if he gets in combat, he gets much more intense. Or if when the fire breaks out, he gets in this even crazier state. So it's all those cool kind of animations that get to come in. And on top of that, when Drake just stands still or when he's in cover, he does these very long streaming animations that sort of are chopped up into bits, and you can't ever tell which is going to play next. So you constantly get a different looking animation while the game is playing. And then a completely new weapon system as well. We realized after Uncharted 2 that one of the problems players were having is they couldn't understand when they were missing a target and when they were hitting it, or they didn't understand why they were missing. And so we completely revamped the weapon system to allow players to understand better how the gun was reacting and how shooting another player or another enemy was working. Is that it for this one? Industry-leading performance capture. So this is another huge piece of our process. When we bring in the actors, we bring them at the very beginning of the game. They come on board. They are complete partners in the process. It's much more like shooting a movie or a TV show. So we end up actually having rehearsal days. They read through the scripts. They give us notes. We give them notes. Then they come in and shoot the motion capture. And we actually shoot the audio and the video at the exact same time, the mocap and the audio at the same time. So we get a really believable performance out of them. We get them reacting to each other on the stage, and that's actually what goes in the game. And so you'll see the performances are much more natural than I think anybody else in the industry is doing, and we're really, really proud of that. So that was the single player bits, and I'll talk about multiplayer a little bit here. So again, Uncharted 3 multiplayer, expanding on our previous experience in Uncharted 2, we released a fully featured multiplayer alongside the rest of the game, and this game we wanted to completely blow that out, make it an even bigger deal, and make it even more fun for the players to play. And so expanding on some of the awards we won last time and trying to do even better this time. So what we think is that we provide a unique action-adventure multiplayer experience. We think we provide something that no one else does. So Drake's mechanics and the way our maps are designed and all the different things that we've added into the game, we think are really different from the other things that are on the market, and the game plays unlike anything else that's out there. And we really think people will enjoy it. And we've seen a great response to the betas that we've done so far. We also wanted to add a completely different and immersive player progression that's actually fun. So allowing you to rank up not only your skills, but your guns, your boosters, your kickbacks, the actual look of your character, all these things we wanted to add into the game as well. And then bringing the cinematic feel of single player into multiplayer, this was a huge deal for us. We wanted to make sure that the set pieces we were doing in single player could actually translate into multiplayer. So the first demo we showed off, we had the trucks racing across the tarmac that you're jumping back and forth between when you're trying to get on an airplane that's trying to take off. We also, just in the beta, we have this moving train level where you can jump back and forth between these trains. We have this crazy sandstorm, all this cool stuff that we added in that makes the game feel even more like the single player, but you're inside of a competitive experience. And then on top of that, we wanted to bring in even more co-op content. So, actually, I'll get to the content in a minute. I guess this was create a best-in-class multiplayer experience. We wanted to make sure that we were creating something that we felt like could hang with the big boys, that it was a really unique and really, really polished experience. So that's where we started with. So new features, basically completely new game modes for this game. We started off with 3-team deathmatch, which is 2v2v2. It's a really fun, really skill-based competitive game where you have 3 teams chasing each other around the map. We added in free-for-all, which people have been asking for since Uncharted 2. You can actually play it in the lobby. We actually also added in team objective and hardcore mode. Team objective is a random series of objectives that move you around the map and constantly make you reevaluate the strategy that you're using. So it'll be anything from hold a territory, capture a plunder flag, play deathmatch, and it's constantly rotating. It's a really fun game type. And then hardcore is for the players that really enjoyed Uncharted 2 and want the most pure skill-based experience that we can possibly provide. So no boosters, no nothing. It's just straight up deathmatch, and we've seen a lot of our hardcore players gravitate to that list. So team deathmatch, one of the things, that's the go-to game type in our game and a lot of other games as well. And one thing we realized in playing in the office is that it's not fun to lose, or to lose really badly in particular. It's hard. It's the players that are winning, there's no challenge in it, so that's not that much fun. And for the players that are losing, especially when you're losing by 10, 15, 20 points, that's not fun. So we added in the idea of a power play. And what a power play is that when the score gets too great, when the difference in score is too great, it kicks into a new mini game mode where the losing team actually has a chance to catch up by scoring more points, and the winning team actually has a chance to earn more cash by all the kills that take place during that time for the winning team. They actually earn more cash for. And so what we found is that it doesn't make the game unbalanced, because what will happen is if a team catches up, it instantly turns that power play off and keeps the game interesting. And if you're really dominating a team, it's not going to change the outcome of the game. You're still going to win. And then after that, we actually added the idea of overtime. We realized that a lot of the games that were close, they were almost too close to call. There was like a 1 point difference at the end of the game. And so what happens is when that comes up, we actually add on another minute of time. And so you have another minute to score as many points as possible, as many kills or points as possible to win the game. And so then if you're even tied after that, we added the idea of sudden death. And this means that you literally only have one life for every single person on your team. And so if the last man standing wins the game. And that's pretty fun as well, at least these very intense moments. And then, like I said before, expanded co-op content. We totally blew out our co-op this game. So last game we had 3 different modes. We had survival, siege, and gold rush, all where you're fighting, you and a partner or 2 partners are working together to fight against the AI. And so what we realized is it's not fun to do the same thing over and over again. So we actually added all those 3 modes together and created one arena mode where you're constantly switching the things that you're doing inside of those levels. So, in one thing it'll be just kill a certain number of the enemies. Then the next one it'll be hold a territory for a certain amount of time. The next one will be capture a flag or capture a plunder flag. And we think that's really, really fun, and it's pretty cool. And there's actually a whole bunch of progression involved in co-op as well. We also added in a brand new hunter mode, and what this is it's 2v2 where the enemies are actually fighting with the AI against the 2 hero characters. And so what happens is it's a round-based thing. So the 2 partners that are on the heroes will then switch to the villain side, and then vice versa, and it's whoever scores the most points. And the way it works is on the villain side, you start off with just a pistol, and then as you earn points and kill the heroes, you actually get medals that you can spend to buy in the game, and even more cool characters. So you start off with just this basic guy, and then you can end up getting like an armor rocket guy and all this stuff. It's actually a really fun mode, and we think people will really like it. We also added even more co-op adventure content. So those are the levels where we had 20, 30-minute experiences where you could run through with a little light narrative. And we did the same thing this time, but we added even more of those levels. And actually, all those co-op adventure levels in this game have a light narrative thread that ties them all together. We think that's really cool, and people really enjoy that.